Meat. It's everywhere. It's served at weddings and wakes, sizzles on barbecues, features in lullabies, legends and late-night kebabs. It's something we eat, something we argue about, and for many, something we avoid. But what exactly is it? Not chemically or nutritionally, but culturally, linguistically, historically. What is meat, really? There was a time when the word meat didn't mean animal flesh at all. In Old English, it simply meant food. All food. Vegetables, bread, even desserts. That's why we still have strange hangovers in our language, like sweetmeats, sugary confections, nut meat, the edible part of a walnut, or mincemeat, which today is just fruit, fat and booze in a pie, but once included actual minced beef or lamb. Meat simply meant food, nourishing substance, whether it came from an orchard, a forest or a farm. The categories were looser, the meanings more fluid. Language had not yet drawn such strict lines between flesh and fruit. It was only after the Norman Conquest and the arrival of French-speaking aristocrats that things began to split. The animals had English names: cow, sheep, pig, but the meat on the table took on French ones: beef, mutton, pork. You raised a cow, but you served bœuf. You herded sheep, but dined on mouton. Language itself began to mirror the class divide. One word for the living creature, another for its flesh once it reached the Lord's plate. It wasn't until the 18th century that meat was practically exclusively taken to mean the edible part of an animal. So the meaning we cling to today, that meat is the edible flesh of animals, is relatively new. A linguistic decision less than 300 years old. And like all language, it's constantly shifting. Our definitions are never fixed. They're shaped by power, habit, memory, and marketing. In recent years, we found ourselves arguing about the definition of meat, about what can and can't be called a sausage or steak. It's important to acknowledge the context within which these debates take place. In a media landscape that needs constant content to fill airtime and web pages, and a political culture that thrives on division. Food, and especially meat, is deeply tied to identity, tradition, and class. That makes it fertile ground for culture wars. We should also recognise how powerful and well-resourced the meat industry is. It has a clear interest in protecting its market share, and one way it does that is by casting doubt over the legitimacy of plant-based alternatives, even at the level of language. But this debate isn't about marketing, it's about meaning. Meat isn't just a product, it's a symbol of strength, wealth, and identity. It sits at the centre of holidays, rituals, and family traditions. It marks special occasions, rewards success, anchors the Sunday table. For generations, it's been tied to masculinity, to power, dominance, control. That link still lingers in barbecue ads, gym culture, and fast food marketing. But it's starting to shift. Rejecting meat no longer means rejecting strength. It just means redefining it. There's a class dynamic too. For much of history, meat was a luxury, a sign that you'd made it. That legacy remains, and today it's often those newly able to afford it who hold on to it most tightly as a marker of success. But times are changing, and so must our symbols. If building a livable planet means eating a little less meat, that's not emasculation, it's maturity. Not a loss of status, but a step towards responsibility. Something we do not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to care. Step back from the labels, and the bigger picture is hard to ignore. People like eating meat. It's deeply embedded in our culture, our habits, even our sense of self. But meat production, as it currently exists, is one of the most environmentally damaging industries on the planet. The Eat Lancet reference diet suggests that UK consumers will need to reduce meat consumption by 80% by 2050 in order to eat in a way that can sustain a global population of 10 billion people within planetary boundaries. The report recommends a 42% decline in the global farm animal population, declining from 76 billion today to 43.7 billion in 2050. The Climate Change Committee has suggested that UK consumers need to reduce meat consumption by 20 to 50% by 2050 if the UK is to meet its net zero goals. It also suggests that 21% of land currently used for agriculture will need to be released for carbon sequestration, and that means eating less meat. As new technologies emerge, cultivated meat, precision fermentation, and plant-based mimicry, the definition of meat may expand again. It might come to mean not what an animal once was, but what a dish represents. Flavour, familiarity, nourishment, comfort. Like all language, the meaning will be whatever we collectively agree it to be. If alternative proteins can help us reduce our overall meat consumption, we should all be in favour of this. And crafting language in a way that helps meet this objective is common sense. So next time your uncle says, "I just can't understand how they're allowed to call them sausages," you might gently remind him that we're facing a climate emergency that threatens to collapse human civilization, and that industrial animal agriculture plays a major role in that. Perhaps that's the more important thing to worry about.